Welcome to our deep dive into the world of billionaire tax strategies. Now, you might be thinking, John, why are we talking about taxes? That's even more boring than watching paint dry on a Tuesday afternoon. And you know what? You're not wrong. Taxes are about as exciting as a beige wall. But here's the thing. These aren't your run-of-the-mill, slightly too complicated 1040 forms. This is the big leagues, folks. We're talking about the kind of tax wizardry that would make Harry Potter himself say, bloody hell, that's some dark magic. Today, we'll uncover the legal methods used by the wealthiest Americans to minimize their tax bills. And let me tell you, it's a doozy. We're talking loopholes big enough to drive a fleet of gold-plated yachts through. We're talking deductions so generous they could make a televangelist blush. These are the strategies that keep the super-rich swimming in cash while the rest of us are just trying to keep our heads above water. So buckle up, grab your calculators, and maybe a stiff drink or two, because we're about to go on a wild ride through the wonderful world of how billionaires pay less taxes than your average kindergarten teacher. And believe me, you're going to want to hear this. All right, let's start with everyone's favorite topic, capital gains tax. We've all heard the phrase buy low, sell high, right? Well, turns out that little rhyme isn't just good advice for your meme stock portfolio, it's also the foundation of a beloved tax strategy for the mega rich. See, when billionaires sell assets they've held for over a year, those profits are taxed at a lower rate than their ordinary income. And when we're talking about hundreds of millions, even a slightly lower rate adds up to a mountain of cash. So what do? They hold on to those assets like a toddler clutching their favorite teddy bear. It's like a giant game of financial hot potato, except the potato is a yacht the size of a small island, and nobody wants to get stuck paying the taxes on it. Speaking of passing things down, let's talk about death and taxes, or rather how to avoid the latter when the former inevitably comes knocking. Enter the step-up in basis rule, a delightful little loophole that makes inheriting a fortune even sweeter. Here's how it works. When someone dies and leaves assets to their heirs, the value of those assets is stepped up to their current market value. So, let's say your dear old dad bought a painting back in the 70s for $10,000, and now it's worth $10 million. When he shuffles off this mortal coil, you, his lucky heir, don't have to pay capital gains taxes on that $9,990,000 profit. It's like the taxman just shrugs and says, well, death and all that, what are you going to do? Now, you might think retirement accounts are about as exciting as watching grass grow, but trust me, they're a cornerstone of billionaire tax avoidance. We're talking IRAs, 401ks, and a whole alphabet soup of tax-deferred savings plans. The beauty of these accounts is that you don't pay taxes on the money you put in or the gains it makes until you withdraw it in retirement. And let's be honest, when your idea of retirement involves private jets and solid gold swimming pools, you can afford to be patient. But it gets even better. Billionaires have access to these supersized retirement accounts with contribution limits that would make your head spin. We're talking millions of dollars stashed away, growing tax-free year after year. It's enough to make you want to start planning your own retirement, assuming you win the lottery a few times over. Chapter 4, Income Shifting. Sharing is caring. Less in taxes. Remember when your parents told you sharing is caring? Well, in the world of billionaire tax strategies, sharing is about minimizing your tax burden. It's called income shifting, and it's all about strategically moving money around to lower your overall tax liability. Think of it as a game of financial hot potato, except instead of a potato, it's millions of dollars. And instead of getting burned, you get a hefty tax break. Now, you can't just hand your gardener $1 million and call it a day. You need the right tools, and that's where things get really fun. We're talking family trusts, gifting to children, and all sorts of creative ways to spread the wealth and the tax burden around. Chapter 5. Private foundations. Charity begins at home and also saves you a ton in taxes. Philanthropy, the noble art of giving back to those less fortunate. It's a wonderful thing, really, but it also happens to be a fantastic way for billionaires to reduce their tax bills while basking in the glow of their own generosity. And the crown jewel of this strategy, private foundations. Think of them as charitable piggy banks controlled by, you guessed it, the very wealthy individuals who set them up. They get to decide which causes to support, how much to donate, and when to do it, all while enjoying hefty tax deductions. It's a win-win, unless you're the taxman, of course. Chapter 6. Offshore accounts and tax havens, where the sun always shines, and so do the tax breaks. Ever dream of escaping to a tropical paradise, sipping cocktails on the beach and leaving your worries behind? Well, for billionaires, that dream also includes leaving their tax obligations behind, thanks to the magic of offshore accounts and tax havens. Now, we're not talking about stuffing a few $1,000s under your mattress. We're talking about sophisticated financial structures in countries with low or even zero taxes. These tax havens are like the Bermuda Triangle of money, where billions of dollars disappear from the grasp of tax authorities and reappear in accounts with names like Sunshine Holdings or Happy Puppy Investments. You know how they say debt is a fact of life? Well, for most of us, that means credit card bills and student loans. But for billionaires, debt is just another tool in their tax avoidance arsenal. Here's the thing. When you're sitting on a mountain of assets, you don't necessarily need to sell them to access cash. You can borrow against them instead. And the best part, the interest on those loans is often tax deductible. It's like getting a discount on your shopping spree, except the shopping spree involves buying a private island or maybe a small country. They say land is the best investment because they're not making any more of it. Well, whoever they are clearly haven't met a billionaire with a team of accountants and a passion for real estate loopholes. Because when it comes to avoiding taxes, real estate is the gift that keeps on giving. First, you've got your depreciation deductions. See, the government lets you deduct a portion of your rental property's value each year to account for wear and tear, even if that wear and tear involves a solid gold bathtub. And then there's the magical world of 1031 exchanges, where you can defer paying taxes on profits from selling a property if you reinvest those profits in another property. Ever wonder why some billionaires seem to get even richer while also saving the planet? Well, it's not just because they're good people, though some of them might be. It's also because the government loves to hand out tax credits and incentives like candy to encourage all sorts of behavior, from investing in renewable energy to conducting research and development. Now, on the surface, these programs seem like a good idea. Who doesn't love clean energy and technological advancements? But the reality is, these tax breaks often benefit those who need them least, the ultra-wealthy individuals and corporations who can afford to take advantage of them. Chapter 10. Carried interest, the private equity loophole that just won't quit. Let's talk about private equity, that shadowy corner of the financial world where money goes to multiply and regular people rarely tread. It's also home to one of the most controversial tax loopholes out there, carried interest. Here's the deal. Private equity managers get paid in two ways, a management fee and a cut of the profits, known as carried interest. Now, you might think that cut of the profits would be taxed as ordinary income, right? But you'd be wrong. Thanks to carried interest, those profits are taxed at the lower capital gains rate. Chapter 11. Tax shelters, because paying your fair share is for suckers. Remember that old saying, two things in life are certain: death and taxes? Well, billionaires have found ways to cheat death, or at least delay it with their fancy doctors and cryogenic freezing chambers. And they've certainly gotten creative with avoiding taxes. And one of their favorite tools, tax shelters. These are complex legal and financial structures designed to shield income and assets from the taxman's grubby little hands. We're talking limited partnerships, S corporations, and all sorts of other acronyms that would make your head spin. Chapter 12. Corporate tax loopholes. Because what's good for billionaires is good for America, right? Finally, we arrive at the holy grail of billionaire tax avoidance, corporate tax loopholes. See, corporations are people too, at least according to the Supreme Court. And just like people, corporations love to hold on to their money. Luckily for them, the US tax code is riddled with deductions, credits and deferrals that allow large companies to legally reduce their tax bills to pennies on the dollar. We're talking about everything from deducting the cost of private jets to shifting profits to subsidiaries in low-tax countries. It's enough to make you wonder if the people who wrote the tax code were playing a giant game of how low can you go with corporate tax rates. Outro, the final tax bill, please. Spoiler alert, it's not pretty. So, there you have it. A crash course in how billionaires legally avoid paying their fair share in taxes. These strategies, while legal, often spark debate over fairness in the tax system. After all, when the super rich can exploit loopholes and deductions that are unavailable to the average American, it creates a system where the wealthy get wealthier and everyone else is left footing the bill. Calls for tax reform continue, but many of these methods remain in use. Politicians promise to close loopholes and level the playing field, but real change seems as elusive as ever, and so the cycle continues. Billionaires getting richer, the tax code getting more complex, and the rest of us wondering if we'll ever catch a break. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more insights.